friend who's sitting here. Saro was the fellow who really got generated with the lawsuit that made Unical come to the table, and it was Peg Bernard. I think the two of you really did a major thing for the community, Saro, and I wondered if you'd come talk.
Well, let's see. My family moved to San Luis Obispo in 1980, and they opened up a restaurant. And back then, I used to like to ride my bike. I used to be a road racer, and I remember coming down to Avalon like in '82 and on Sundays and going down to the old Custom House when it was, I think, before they even had a back patio, and having pancakes out there. And I always fell in love with Avalon. When I was going to Cal Poly, my brother and I, back in '89, we thought, well, you know, we used to work at the restaurant, we saved up some tip money, and they were building some homes up in the States, Pelican Point, so we put a little money together. I think we used to pay our mortgage on a credit card, and we moved to Avalon Beach, and that was a great place if you're in college, to have your little bachelor pad up there. We weren't bachelors, but we had a good time. Anyways, I ended up going to law school up at Santa Clara, and in 1992, when I graduated, a lot of my friends were getting jobs up in the Big Bay area and the big firms and stuff, and you know, my heart was in Avalon. I said, well, you know, people work their whole life and they want to retire in Avalon. I'm already living there. I go, why go around? I'll just move back to Avalon, and I opened up my little law practice in the downstairs basement. After a couple of years, we're coming down to Avalon, talking to people, see what's going on, and I don't want to tell the whole story about the book and get involved, but long and short of it, we put a group together called the Avalon Alliance, and we had my friend who I knew from high school, Matt Farmer, who Big Matt still lives in San Luis, and he was Baron Farmer's second youngest son. And Matt and I were old buddies, and he said, okay, well, let's put this group together. He goes, what for? He said, we're going to sue Unical. He goes, you got to be crazy. Well, you know, so out of my basement, we put a lawsuit together, and the long and the short of it, we're trying to get Avalon to Unical at the time to be responsible and to clean up Avalon Beach, because at the time they were talking about biosparging the town or concreting the whole beach, and we figured that's never going to work. Anyways, we sued, and then we got joined in by some other environmental groups, and then the Attorney General's Office of California came in representing the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the Department of Fish and Game was also in there. So there was a bunch of us, and there was Unical attorneys. And once the state came in, they told them, no, you're going to have to excavate the whole town. At that point, the decision was, you know, how are we going to put this big settlement together? Because obviously we wanted to get as much out of Unical, because we knew once it was over, they were going to be gone, it was going to be over. The opportunity to get certain things was going to be over. So at the time, Archie had been working diligently for years and years on the Front Street Enhancement Project, working with them. And anyway, so the negotiating table, and guess what? Having 11 attorneys in a room, it's hard to get anything done. And but I have to. Unical had a very their counsel was in-house counsel was a gentleman by the name of Mark Smith, and I must admit that he was a true gentleman, and he was a good guy to work with. Type of guy that you could shake his hand and you'd try to do to try to get it done. And I'm going to give you a quick little story. There's so many stories about the lawsuit, but I'm going to tell you about how the park, the county park at the end of the Front Street came about. I think it was in February or so, and we had been at loggerheads for about 9 months in negotiations. We're trying to get more money out of Unical, and we're going back and forth, and it was baby steps, and all the Unical attorneys had gone on vacation. They had gone skiing, I think, up in Boulder, and they were making good money. And then Mark Smith called me up at home, and he said, sorry, he goes, you know, I really got to get this deal done. He goes, can you meet with me? And I said, okay, well, sure, let's meet. So we met with Jim Lindholm, who was a great person with the county council. He was represented. And he said, let's meet at the county council's office. So it was just Jim, myself, and Mark. And he said, listen, I can't go back. I don't have any more cash left over for this settlement. And this is one of those things of thinking outside the box. And I said, well, you know, you have a lot of land, because what Unical have been doing is they have been purchasing a lot of the contaminated soil up and down the Front Street, because if they owned it, then they can control the cleanup. And up by the thing that was called, we call it the Lion, Roger Lyon owned that big parcel, and they had purchased it him from a year before. And out of the blue, I said, well, why don't you give us that piece of property that you own up the street, the line piece? He goes, instead of cash. And he goes, well, what do you want to do with it? And I said, well, it'd be a great place to have a park. And he goes, really? You want that piece of property? And then I looked Jim Lindholm, and he goes, Jim, how about a county park right there? Because there's a lot of people who were handicapped, couldn't use the beach. I mean, you couldn't have access problems. So he said, yeah, okay, fine. He said, so Jim says, let me see. So he called upstairs, and he took to his head of his county parks. He goes, hey, would you like a park? He goes, we have no money. He goes, well, how about if it's for free? And he said, well, that sounds like a good deal. And then after, he goes, but who's going to build it? And I told Unical, I said, you're going to build it. He goes, oh, now you want more money? I go, yeah. He said, so we said, okay, give us $500,000, and you give the property. But the thing is, Unical, you build it. We'll design it, you build it, because obviously it'd be easier for them to build it as part of the project. And he said, fine. He went, he called back at corporate headquarters in LA, and he said, yeah, okay, you got a deal. Jim, we all shook hands. And that's how the whole settlement, that was the final bit of the whole project. And we got the park built that way.